Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I am Joe. This episode is the gameplay video for First Blood in the Crimea, Battle of the Alma. This is from Paper Wars number 98, and this was a recent Midweek Magazine episode, so this will be the gameplay video for the game that comes inside that magazine. This is designed by Ty Bomba and, of course, Paper Wars, and this game are published by Compass Games. So this is, as you may guess from the title, a battle from the Crimean War. This is the first battle from that war. And you can see the Alma River is right here. Now, I do have the map. The map should be oriented, up and down as opposed to side, but for video purposes, we're doing side to side. And because I'm playing solo, I have all of the counters oriented so that their combat factors are facing me. So our compass-wise, the north is this way. And north is that way. Up top, which is off shot, we have our terrain effects chart and our CRTs. Our CRT, there's only one combat result table. There is a Russian bombardment table as well, so we'll talk about that too. So this game is fairly straightforward, not overly complicated. Seems like it's should be a fun and interesting look at a battle that probably isn't gamed all that much. Mid-19th century Crimean War. That war is probably most famous for just the the amount of disease and sickness. On the British side, you had Florence Nightingale kind of providing the initial demonstration of the value of having combat nurses to help the doctors keep soldiers healthy and help them recover and so on and so forth. So let's get down to the game. Our turn sequence consists of 5 different phases. We have the turn sequence declaration phase, and what that involves is simply having the British and French, the Allied side down here. So red is British, blue is French. The 2 green units down here are Turkish. Up here, the gray, those are the Russians. The game allows the initiative player to decide which order to do combat and movement in. So you can decide that you want to do movement before combat, which is probably what would be done in this instance on turn 1, only because you can't do combat without closing with the enemy. And as you can see, the British and the French both are kind of far away from the Russian forces. I do need to fix the Russian deployment. So this is just an intro here. You can see a bunch of stacks. There is no stacking in this game. So for example, for setup, you can see, well, it's upside down. Let's do the British instead. So here on the British, you see RB, right? That is the Rifle Brigade. And you can see it right here. That is their counter. That up there is the identifier that you use on the map to tell you where to deploy. The 4 is its combat strength. There's no movement factor on these counters, and 1 is the regiment. So there are 2 units in this brigade, and you saw 1 there, and this one would be 2, of course. I did not clip these counters. I probably will. I have a feeling that I'm going to like this game based on reading the rules. It's very straightforward, not overly complex, and I like a game where you can focus on tactics and not a lot of rule overhead. In some cases, it's a good break from the more complex fare that you can run into playing war games. So, as I said, the stacking limit is 1 per hex. Now we look at the Russians here. This is you can see BO, and there's BO right there. So there are 4 units here, And the way it works is you put one in the center on there, and then the other 3 can go around it in adjacent hexes, basically. So 1 hex. So the Russian deployment would be something along these lines for that unit. So I'm going to pause here because I just kind of wanted to start off and explain the initial, the way the initial turn setup goes. So again, turn sequence wise, as the allies, you can decide I want to do movement first. So you'll do movement, and then once you activate a unit and do something with it, so let's say we activate this guy and he moves, their movement factor is 8, he can move down the road, which has a movement factor of 1. And so he can move up 8 spaces. And once he did that, you would flip him over to the disorganized side, or disrupted side rather, which just indicates that he's done. It's kind of similar to like an ops complete or moved, or other counters that you might encounter in a game, except in this case it's just on the flip side. And once everybody has been flipped on both sides, the phase ends, then you have a first recovery phase where everybody flips their counters back over, and then you do the other thing, whether it's combat or movement. In the first turn, it will be movement. Everybody will move on both sides. Once everybody has moved, we'll flip it all back over, and then we'll do the combat phase. You alternate as well. So you would play, this guy moves, and then maybe this guy moves. And if you decide not to move, you still can just automatically disrupt them, which counts as your move, and it goes back to the other side. So the Russians, as the defenders, may not do a lot of moving in the first turn, but they can do some. So I'm going to pause here, and I'll fix the Russian deployment. I just kind of plopped them all down just for quickness, and now I'll fix it all up, and we'll continue and get down to playing the game. Okay, we are all set up. So one other thing to mention before we begin: all the Russian units are 1-step units. The Allied units, you can see some of these, like this guy here, has a strength of 4. It's a pretty solid, strong unit. They have a second unit, right, that is the reduced version of that unit, and it is right here. So this is it. So when this one takes a step loss, we replace it with this. It's a 2-step unit. Once this one is reduced, it is eliminated. There are no reinforcements, no replacements. No one comes back from the dead. Once they're in the dead pile, they stay in the dead pile. Okay. So on our turn track, which is over here, you can see it is turn 1. It is 1 p.m. to 1:30. Each turn covers 30 minutes. There are 6 turns in the game, so the battle will end at 4 p.m. And the British and French, the Allies, I'll just call them the Allies. The Allies will go first. They will choose to do movement first, which will allow them to move their forces forward and bring the Russians to battle. So they will go first. We'll move 1 unit, then the Russians will move a unit. Back and forth we go until everybody is done. So just to kind of demonstrate, let me flip this guy back over. Okay. We have a bridge here which crosses the Alma River. Now you do have zones of control. Once you move into a zone of control, you stop. So we would only really be able to cross, well, I shouldn't say that. We'll explain how this works. So let me zoom in and show you this area of the map. Okay. So we have our 2 British units here. What we're going to do is we're going to move this guy. That's interesting. We're going to move this guy up here. Okay, so now he's on this river hex, but there's a bridge over it. He's also in the enemy zone of control of this unit right here, so he has to stop. Right? So every unit has 8, and there's no artillery or anything on here right now. There is Russian bombardment, and we'll talk about that when they come up, which will be in a moment. So everybody has a movement of 8, and let me get the terrain chart that's in the rule book, because the one on the map obviously would be hard to see. But here's our terrain effects chart, right? This is from the magazine. You can see the clear hex costs 2. Now a road is 1 and negates the slope crossing cost. As far as combat effects, it's determined by the other terrain in the hex. In this case, the other terrain in this hex is a river. So if you look at the unbridged river hex, which is bridged river hex right here, defender's combat result is 1. If all involved attacking units, reduced by 1 rather. So basically, if he attacks him, whatever losses he takes will get reduced by 1 because the attack is coming from the river, essentially. You can see some slope hex sides here. So this would be the lower side. This would be the high side. So if I were to attack, if I were here and to attack this guy, I'd be attacking upslope. That has a benefit for the defender as well. So in terms of movement now, I've moved, and this move, because it's a bridged river hex, it's just 1. But because he's in an EZOC, even though he has 7 more movement points, he can't move anymore. So he's done. Now the Russians can move as well, but they also have the ability during both combat and movement phase to do a bombardment. Now there is a Russian bombardment table as well, which is right here, right? So you can see you roll, and you roll a single die, and you get a +1 if the target's adjacent to the outside of a redoubt hex side, and that redoubt has never been Allied controlled and is presently Russian controlled. So the Russians had a couple of redoubts. One is right here, and that one is called the Great Redoubt, and you can see the heavy brown line around it, indicating that it is a redoubt. There's one to the left, the Little Redoubt, on the slightly to the left of this one. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hexes away. So you can literally see the edge of it right there. That's the edge of it. And they provide, obviously, defensive benefits to the units inside those. They also contain Russian artillery. Now, I said there are no Russian artillery or Allied artillery, for that matter, in terms of counters on the map. It's kind of included in the general combat, but the Russians have the ability to do this heavy bombardment, and they have bombardment counters, which are these guys right here, and their really only purpose is to act as a counting measure. So you can hopefully see there are 8 of them, and I made a pile, and each time I use one, I'm just going to take it off the pile. Right? They're double-sided. The inverse is the same as the front. So I am just going to spend 1 and just put it off to the side to indicate it has been used, and you can bombard any British unit that's within 6 of a Russian unit. So let's bombard this guy, even though he has not moved yet. His strength is a 4, so he's one of the more powerful units in the game. In fact, there are several 4s. The French have, it looks like, 3 of them, and the British have 2. The Russians have none, so they are obviously not quite as powerful. So we will roll 1d6. Got my d6 right here. I'm going to get my tower out. We'll put that in the shot, and I will roll, and we got a 5. So that's 5 indicates that that is a target disruption. So that just means we flip them over, and they can't move now. We didn't do any casualties, and Russian bombardment can inflict a step loss if it's a 2-step unit. If it's a 1-step unit, then it just disrupts the unit, because the theory or the rule is that the artillery cannot actually kill a unit. It can reduce it. But if it's already a 1-step unit, because it's already been reduced, then it would be destroyed. Now, the Turks, of course, I didn't mention this, but the Turks, they are a 1-step unit. As you can see, they just have their flag on the back. And they're a 1 combat power, so they don't have a backup. If they get a step loss, they are destroyed, just the same as the Russians. Okay, so we've got our 2 units here that have now been that are now disrupted, sorry, he's disrupted as well because he moved. So we'll flip him over. I forgot to do that. And of course, as I mentioned, the Russians have used 1 of their 8 bombardments. So you get 8 for the whole turn. not phase. Like these guys will get another action. They'll flip back over when we go to the recovery phase, which is step 3. So right now we're in step 2 of the turn sequence, and there's 5 total. Step 2 is actions, so it's movement or combat. It's movement right now in this turn. In some turn in the future, it may be combat first and then movement. We'll see how things look. The allies will make that determination. So what I'm going to do now is I will move a bunch of my units off camera. We'll take a break, and then I'll come back and we'll look at the map in full size, so you can see where all the units ended up, and I'll talk about any step losses or anything that may occur from Russian bombardment. We'll see how much Russian bombardment there is, or if they elect to just kind of pass on that. This way, things can keep moving. If I'm just moving units, it's not that thrilling, and it just eats up time. So back in a moment. Okay, we're back, and everybody has moved. Now, fairly uneventful. I did one more bombardment for the Russians. I think I might have slid the cover a little bit here, so I have a little bit of adjusting to do, and I'll get that when I flip them back over. The one bombardment the Russians did, though, was effective. It was this one, I think. Yes. So this was the 77th Light Infantry. You can see it's now a 1. The little star up there in the upper right corner, that indicates that it has been reduced. And this is a replacement. So now what we would do here is we would go in and, for the recovery phase, flip everybody over. So I will do that off camera as well. But just looking at the general situation here, right, you can see that the Allied forces have pushed to the south. The north is this way. I misspoke earlier. That's south. So they're going south towards Sevastopol. The Black Sea is over here. You can see these little marks in here that look like little artillery symbols. That's where that's the range of naval guns from the Navy out in the Black Sea. So any fighting in here, the Allies will receive the benefit of the support of the naval guns. So that will help their firepower. And so you can see the French are pushing up here. There's a line here, which kind of is the demarcation between the two forces. The British cannot go to this side of that line, and the French cannot go to that side of that line. It ends here. So once you get across the river, essentially, it becomes more open, and you can, generally, since they don't really fight together, they can't fight together. There is organizational integrity in the game, so when you fight, it's to your benefit, because you can only combine forces from the same unit. So, for example, the Rifle Brigade, which is these two right here, can fight together. But if you tried to combine the Rifle Brigade with somebody else, wouldn't work. So that's the idea. And the French and the English, or the Turks and anybody, or the English and anybody, they can't combine. Can't combine, so you don't have to worry about, you do have to worry about not trying to do that, because it's against the rules. But you can obviously, just like in most war games, you can, put as many units around a unit as possible to attack that defender by combining their power. Some games, there are different rules for it, obviously, amongst different things. But anyway, this is the look after the movement in turn 1. So we're going to pause here. I'm going to flip everybody over and try and get them all centered in their hexes again. And then we will continue with the combat phase. Okay, let's resume. So we flipped everybody over. Now we're in the combat phase. So we'll do an attack right here. We've got a couple of places where they've crossed the river and are adjacent to Russian forces, but just a couple of places. This should be pretty quick. We've got these two, and then these two. Okay, so a quick check of our CRT here. right? So basically the way it works is you look at the two units, 4 and 2 are their factors. So you have a differential here. So that would be in the +2 column, and you roll a die and you see what you get. There are no die roll modifiers. Anything less than 0 are resolved using 0. Anything greater than 8 are resolved using 8. So we're in here, and you can see if you roll a 5 or a 6, then only the attacker takes a loss. 4, 2, 3, 4 is a 1-to-1 exchange, basically, and you want to roll a 1 because that would be a 1-2. Now, the other problem is the terrain effects chart here, since we're in an unbridged, where is it? Right there, unbridged river hex, right? So it's this box here. Defender's combat result reduced by 1 if all involved attacking units are in unbridged river hexes or a mixed of, oh wait, we're in a bridged hex though, so combination of bridged and unbridged river hexes. So it's still a one, it's still a -1 on that. So we'll try it, and we'll hope that we roll a 1, because that's the only thing that's going to actually impact them. And we rolled a 4, and a 4 would be a 1-1, but because they get a -1, we only lose. So this guy is going to get reduced. And you might say, well, why did you do that? Well, for an example, right? It wasn't the best decision, of course, because now this unit gets reduced, as you can see. So this guy goes away. This guy is now here. Now, what that means is he's disrupted, but also he is disrupted. So he cannot attack. He cannot, oh, I'm going to attack you now because you're reduced. He can't, because he's now disrupted, right? So that's that attack. Now over here we have a 3-2, and again we have the same situation. So what I probably will do here is not bother with it. But before we get to that, it's the Russians' turn. And so looking at what we've got here, we can do some more bombardments, I think, is what we're going to end up doing here. So we're just going to roll on the bombardment table, because the only place they could attack would be here, and that would be in the 0 column. And the 0 column on our CRT is not particularly beneficial to the attacker. And they wouldn't, it's just not good to try to do that. Now, if I had moved this guy up, then they would get the -1 because this is a river hex. So it's not a great situation for the attacker to attack that unit while it is there. Okay. So having said all that, let's start bombarding. So we can bombard units. Now, this one's already been reduced, so we don't want to hit him, because it serves no purpose. Artillery cannot kill a unit, they can only disrupt it. So they can disrupt it or reduce it by a step if it's a 2-step unit. All the allied units are 2-step units at start, but we've got 2 reduced now. This one's reduced and that one's reduced. So you can't kill this one or this one with artillery. That's really the fallout of that. So let's roll again here. So on the bombardment chart, a 1-3 is no effect. A 4-5 is target disrupted. 6-7 is target disrupted and loses a step if it's a 2-step. You get a +1 if the target's adjacent to a redoubt. So if we had a unit here or here, or here or here, or here, or whatever, as long as they're next to the redoubt, they can get they get a +1 DRM. That's not the case. They get a 2. That's no effect. We were attacking this guy. Now we'll try. Let's try this one again. So that's 3 used. We've got 5 left. I'm not going to move anybody else here. There's no other attacks for the allies to do. So we're just going to keep this simple here. 3 is no effect. And you can try it multiple times. So we're just going to keep trying to reduce this guy. And look, we got a 6. So that was successful, and he is now reduced as well. So the 2 most powerful units for the British are now reduced. They've got 4 left. So let's try this French guy who's across the river. That's a nothing. So that's 5 used. Hit him again. Nope. Hit him again. Look at that. Success. All right. So this is the 22nd Light Infantry. And if I can find, there he is. All right. So he gets replaced, and he's now a single combat factor. So the Russian guns doing their work. Now this one's a Zouave, and they have special movement abilities. They're much more flexible movement wise, and they are within 6. So let's try and take this one out with our last attack. And we rolled a 3, which is no effect. So that is the last bombardment. Everybody else will pass. I'm not going to go around and flip everybody because it takes a long time to do so. So I'm just going to flip everybody back over to their active side. And we will get things going here for the second turn. And again, the allies are going to elect to use movement first and then do attacking. So what we'll do here is pretty straightforward. We're going to, well, I'll demonstrate what you can do here. So this guy's obviously in a zone of control of this unit. Now he can't move from an Ezok to an Ezok, so he could not move here, and he cannot move here. Now I don't want to keep him adjacent to this guy because for one thing, he's clogging the route across the river, and for another thing, he's a 1, so he's now somewhat combat ineffective. So if we move him back down the road, that only costs us 1, and then we move him here, that would be 3. Okay, and then we flip him over. Now the Russians, well, they got all their bombardments back, so maybe we should try to bombard somebody again. So looking around, we're looking for a 4. Here's a 4 right here. Let's see if we can reduce this guy, or at the very least disrupt him from the Russian standpoint. We get a 3, which is nothing. So they've now spent 1 of their bombardments. They have 7 left. And they don't flip anybody, right? So let's move, what do we want to do now? Let's move, let's start moving some of these infantry across the river. So you can ford the river, and this is where things get a little crazy. So we've got an upslope here. They're already in the river hex. So basically they're already across the river, essentially. So they can move up here, right? Or they can go here and then here, or I can just move this guy through the river. But here's the thing, okay? So to move into this hex, we have the cost of that to move into an unbridged river hex is 4. And yeah, so let's just say we move them here. That's 4. And then to go upslope into this would be normally 2. But we're going upslope, so you add +1. So he's got 4 already, so this would put him at 7, and now he's flipped as well. And now he's adjacent to this guy. Okay, so now we'll again do Russian artillery. Let's take a shot at this unit that just crossed the river to see if we can roll a 6 and disrupt him. We'll roll our die. We got a 2, so that's nothing. Now we're going to move this guy, and he's going up. He's going across. He's going into this hex, which only costs 2, and it's going to be also a +1 for going upslope because this is an upslope here. So he will also go right here. We'll have them attack this guy again. Well, maybe not. Let's see. Let's I need to move these guys. I need to shift forces in this direction to try and counter the French over here. So let's go 1, That's 2, 4, 6, 8. We're just going to slide 2, 4, 6. We'll just put them here. That's fine. 2, 4, 6. They're only going to use 6. And I know I'm doing them all in a row, and I shouldn't. So let's just move these back. And then I'll remember to do this. Okay, so we moved one. They get to move one. This guy is now going to move up here. Okay, so now we've got a situation where he's adjacent to a redoubt. What I'm trying to do here, as I'm sure you can see, is get 3 combat units on this guy to see if we can break this line and get up into the redoubt. Capturing the redoubt will remove half their artillery strength, so that's always worthwhile, worth an effort here. So what we'll do, now that we've done that, they're going to bombard this unit to see if, with the +1, if they can get a 5 or 6, and they get a 1. That's no effect. They've now spent 3. And the British are up again, or the French, whoever I wish to move. So let's look at the Zouave here. So this is a Zouave unit. This is the French one of the 2 French Zouaves, and you can see the Z there, just right of the infantry figure above the 3. So he is, I think, here, or was there. Now, they get special movement factors because they're because of their unit type. So if we go to the terrain effect chart, down at the bottom, you can see the 2 asterisk Zouaves only pay 2, and for 4, the 4 asterisk Zouaves pay 1. That's for uphill, upslope, downslope. They only pay 1 movement point, and they only pay 2 in things like bridges, orchards, village, or vineyard, village, unbridged rivers, etc., etc. So they are going to move. They can move from here, right? This is a cliff hex side, which would normally add, what does it add? I think it's +4 moving upslope. For the Zouaves, it's only 1. So 1 into clear would be a total of 3, because that's a +4. And then he can do it again. So you've got 1 for the upslope for the Zouave, and then 2 for moving into a clear hex. And he can do that again and move here. That costs him 6, and then he can move here for 8. And then we flip him over. Okay. Now we have the Russians will move. We're going to move this guy 2, 4, 6, 8. We're going to put him here to help defend this city against them. It also blocks the route for any of these guys who probably can't afford to get to there anyway. So we maybe put our Zouave out on a limb there, but I'm comfortable with that from the current standpoint. So we're going to take this guy. He's going to go 2, 4, and flip. Now again, the Russians can bombard, but we've got we spent 3, I think. My counting is correct. Let's try it again. We'll try to hit this guy because he's more dangerous than this one, in my opinion. And he gets a 4, which becomes a 5, and that disrupts him, but he's already disrupted because he moved, so it's no effect. Okay, so now we can move another unit. Let's take this guy here. He's going to go here for 2. Then if he goes uphill, you got to add +4. So that would actually cost him 6 total to move into this hex, which he can do because it cost him 2 to move here, +6 is 8. So that's his entire move right there. So the cliffs are tough, obviously. Tough terrain feature. Let's move some more Russians in this direction. 2, 4, 6, 8. Let's put him here. And then we'll go back to the Allies, and we'll move our last. I don't know if I want to move this guy. We'll move this guy for 2, 4, 6. Put him right there. They're gonna save their bombardment, I think, and we'll move this last guy from the TA unit. Now, all these units, there's a key for them in here that tells you what the letters mean. If I can find it, yes, here we go. The Russian abbreviations. TA is the right here, Tarutine Regiment. So you can see you've got Byalostok, Borodino, Brest, Engineers, Kazan, Minsk, Moscow, etc. Okay, so now you know who that is. We're going to move this guy 2, 4, 6, 8. Let's do this. Let's set up a little bit of a line right here. Okay. Now the allies will go. I'm going to move this guy. Maybe I won't move him yet. So let's see. Who do we want to move next? Let's move this guy up. So now he's going to go. He can go here, but he's moving down a river hex. So let's. So you get a +4 and a 2. That would be 6. So if we put him here, that is fine. Or did I over? Was he already flipped over? Maybe he wasn't. I don't think he was. All right. Back to the Russians. I kind of like their defensive positioning. I'm not sure I want to change anything. So let's just let's maybe move these guys up. So we'll go down the road. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. We'll put him there. And we'll move this guy. We're going to flip him. Actually, no, we're not, because he didn't do anything. We're going to move this guy here. He definitely has enough movement points to do that. Now the Russians will go again. 1, 2, 3, 6, 5, 7. Get there. Now the French can go. Let's move. We got a Zouave here. So we have the vineyard here, and they cost 3, but for a Zouave, it's only 2. So we could do 2, 4, then cross the river, which typically costs 4, but again, would cost them 2. So we'll move them here for 6 total. And this is from the 1st Division. So we can move these guys later, maybe. That would be 1. Yeah, he can get here. Then we have a little attack that we can set up right there. So we're trying to set up some attacks here. So I'm going to pause again and do the rest of the movement. The Russians won't bombard anymore. And so I will probably move these guys down to back up the rest of their division over here. This is the MO, that's the Moscow division. So we'll move those guys down. And most of the rest of them, I think, will stay where they are. And then we'll move the rest of the British forces and the rest of the French and the Turks to the south. Okay, so as I forgot to mention, we are in turn 2 here, of course. As you can see, I did move a few Russians here. This is the VO division, which off the top of my head, I don't remember who that is. That is the Volinsk Regiment. Volinsk Regiment, not divisions. I've been calling them divisions. So battalions, right? Regiments, battalions. And I also called them companies, I think, earlier. I'm all over the map here. But yeah, so that's the Volinsk Regiment. We've got 3 battalions because we have to have, again, the organizational integrity. So these 3 are all from the Volinsk Regiment. They can attack this guy who is a Zouave, I think. No. But he was able to get up here because I wanted to kind of I can attack with these two and not this one and not take the penalty for the river. So I have two twos here, I think. I think this one's a 2. Yeah, they're both 2s. So that's not a great advantage. It's 4 to 2, so it's a +2. But you lose that -1. So we're going to try and crack this guy because he's sitting there on the road and in the way. Crack that guy, and then, of course, the Russians will be able to attack this one with 6 to 2. So, could be dicey. Over here, the French have set themselves up pretty nicely. We have a 4 right here that I am planning on attacking. Hit this guy separately because it's not an upslope. He's not on a river hex, so we can get a 4 to 2, which is a +2, which is about the best we can hope for right now. And then if that fails to work, I have these 3 guys that can attack him as well, but they're going to take the -1 penalty for being in river hexes. And over here we have the same thing. Here the Russians moved in to kind of, you saw this, but they're kind of trying to block this French way around the corner here. The Allies win if they get to the southern map edge, which is up top, off shot right now. They also win if they take this hill, Telegraph Hill, and this hill, which is Korgani Hill, which is literally means hill. That's something that Ty put in the rules for the game. That literally means hill. They take this hill and this hill, they win. If they get up to the top of the map with just 1 unit, they also win. So the Russians have to stop them from doing a breakout, because if they can get to this road, the French, if they can get to this road and just drive right up the road, which would only take a couple turns, they could theoretically win the game pretty quickly. So I'm going to flip everybody over, and we're going to do the combat phase, and then we'll see about turn 3. I may do turn 3, get half the game in. Not showing all the movement really helps, but you can see kind of how things are developing. We've got several areas where we're going to be making attacks here. We have the little redoubt right here. I have not yet put anybody next to the Great Redoubt, but obviously this redoubt is blocking the path to the hill that we need to take to win. And over here, this is all these guys are blocking the path to Telegraph Hill. And I have not yet moved anybody. I'm keeping this regiment back here as the kind of reserve to flow towards whichever hill may be threatened first. This one's pretty strong. Got a defending force on it already. This one, I moved the defending force kind of down to put up a defense in front of the hill. And then, if necessary, we can retreat up onto the hill and defend up there. So that's the plan for the 2 sides. And now we'll take a pause. I'll flip everybody, and we'll get into the combat phase. Okay, so we are back. And I flipped everybody. Whoops, I did not flip everybody. I was lying. Or mistaken, I guess. Wasn't on purpose. So we just flipped these guys back over, and now we are ready. So we will have some combat this turn, here in turn 2. And so we'll start over here. So the Brits get to go first, because the Allies get to go first, and I'm starting on the left. That's where the British are. So that is how we're going to proceed here. We have this guy right here. He's going to be attacked by these 3 units. So we're going to have a 9 to 2, which is a +7. Now you have attacking upslope. So that's going to have an impact as well. Slope hex side. So the defender's combat result is reduced by 1 if all involved attacking units are attacking upslope through slope hex sides. But there's no effect if 1 or more attacking units are attacking downslope and or via non-slope hex sides. So luckily for him, everybody's attacking up the hex side. So we do have a 7 to 1. So let me bust out my CRT here. All right, so 7 very, very heavily favors the attackers. Now he will reduce 1, but if we can roll a 1, 2, or 3 here, that will eliminate any of these will eliminate the unit, because he's only a 1-step unit. So, but we still want to roll low so that we don't lose any money, right? So let's roll our die. It's a 5. So a 5 is unfortunately a 1-2. So they reduce, that it becomes a 1 for them, so they do lose their unit because it's a single step unit, and the British lose a step. So we will take that from the 7th here. Okay, so here is the replacement, and we'll put him here, and we're going to move this guy up into this hex. And they all get flipped, of course, to the disrupted side because they have been used. Now the Russians get to perform an action here. And let's see, how about up here? We could do a local counterattack, perhaps, on this guy right here to disrupt him, which will prevent him from being able to attack with his partner here, right there. So there's a little bit of the tactical nature here. So we have a Zouave here. He's a 3. These are 2s, so it's a 4-3 now. It's all downslope, so downslope does not provide any advantage for the defender. So it's simply a +1 on the die roll on the CRT. I'm sorry. It's the +1 column. And they rolled a 2, which is not going to be a good result. A 2 is a 1-1, so it's basically an exchange. So on the Russian side, that is going to remove one of their units. We'll take that one, I guess. And on the French side, we'll reduce our Zouave, which is not great, but it is what it is. So this is the reduced Zouave. We will flip him over because he's disrupted. And that is that. So now we go back to the Allies. We'll have these 2, which is 6 total, attack this guy right here. They are from the same unit. They're both L's, so they are from the same light infantry regiment right here. So they're attacking there, and they get a +4. We are again upslope, so we're going to apply a -1 to the result on the defender side. And we roll. We get a 1, which is a great roll, actually. So a 6-2 is +4 column. That is a 0-2. Becomes a 0-1, but again, they're only 1-step units, so that is another elimination. We will move this unit. I think we'll move this one up here. And this guy gets disrupted. Okay, so now the Russians have an opportunity here, right? We've got these 2 right here, and this guy's a 3. He's a 3. Come on. Trust me. Yeah, he's a 3. Trust me, bro. He's a 3. Okay. 4-3. Now, that's only a +1, and the +1 column is generally unfavorable for an attacker. But by the same token now, if we don't do it, we've got 2 units here that can attack as well. Now, another thing you can do is called a flanking attack, and I'll see if I can find a place where that might actually work, and I do see one. So the way a flanking attack works is basically it's like a move during combat to put yourself, like to move from an EZOC to an EZOC. It's the only way around. It counts as a combat action. Now, it is the Russian turn, but just for example here, you could take this British unit and say, I'm going to do a flanking attack, which I'm not going to do, but he would move here, right? Which would set him up to be in a bad situation there with the Russians surrounding him, basically. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to have these 2 attack there. Well, maybe we won't. Instead, let's bombard him, okay? Because we still have 4 bombardments. So we're going to use our 5th bombardment here. And we're going to roll on the bombardment table. Got a 4. A 4 is target disrupted, which he already is. So that does not Oh, they get a +1, which would make it a 5, but it's still a disruption because he is adjacent to the redoubt. So that counts as the Russian move. Now we have some more British here. So we have these two. I'm going to do this one and this one, but not this one, attacking that guy. So that's 4-2. So it's a +2. And because neither of these are in a river hex, we don't take that -1 loss there. So we're just going to roll here. On the 2 column, get a 4. That's not a good result. You want to roll low, basically. 4 in the column 2 is a 1-1. So that will eliminate the unit, but one of our 2nd regiment here is going to take, one of our 2nd regiment battalions is going to take a loss. So we'll give it to, where were we attacking again? Right here, right? Yes. Let's take it from this guy. And this is the 41st from the 2nd. So let's find that. Yep, there it is. There it is. You can see the same ID there in the lower left corner. So he will be here and disrupted. This one will move here and be disrupted. And the reason I did that is now he's got a 4-2 situation, whereas over here it would have been a 6-2. So that lessens the potential for the Russians to do extra damage. They can still attack 4-2, which is a +2. So they will give that a shot. Why not? And they rolled a 2, which is a good result typically for an attacker, and a 2 is a 1-1. So that will reduce this guy. He is 49. So this is 49's reduced, as you can see. Put him right here. And they lose one of their units. So we'll take this guy. He's in the less defensively advantageous location, I guess you could say. So that was basically an exchange. Maybe not the wisest move on the Russian part, but again, it's like a why not situation. Now here we have a 3-2 that we could do with the French. Originally, I had this set up so that the Zouave would be able to participate as well, but now that he's been attacked, he cannot attack. So that's a little bit of the chess match in this game. Is you can preempt the enemy's action on your turn by doing something like the Russian did here. Now, it doesn't always pay, especially from the Russian side. They're much better off being mostly defensive in nature because of their situation and the fact that they're outgunned, generally speaking, by the Allied forces. So if we did this, it would be in the 1 column, and anything will cause a loss to the attacker, no matter what the result is. So it's probably not to the benefit of the French to actually attack there. If they rolled a 1, 2, or 3, they would get a 1, but it's an upslope attack. Subtract 1, it's 0. No benefit to attacking. Now down here, we have a 4-2 that we can do. And the reason we would do this is, first of all, no slope. Second of all, no river. Like this is a river hex, that's a river hex, that's a river hex. So I can attack twice and do this one and take the -1 if this one doesn't work. So what we're going to do here is we are going to, we're going to have the 4-2 attack. So we'll do that and we will roll for it here. And we got a 6, so that's bad. 6 in the +2 is a 2-0. So this unit has been eliminated. So yeah, that was bad, as I said. But now we're going to try this 9-2 with the -1, and I maybe should have done that first. 9-2 and the -1. So we're in the +7 column. And we rolled a 2, which is a good result. That is a 0/3, so that would get reduced to a 2, but that still serves the purpose of eliminating him. We will move... yeah, we'll move this guy out of the river hex on the advance. And the Russians take another loss. Let's see what else. This is flipped. This is flipped. And this is flipped. Okay. And that Russian would have been flipped as well before I did the second combat, of course. Now, up here, we can also do an attack if we wish. It is a 4-3. But I don't think it's worth it because, again, it's a +1, which will always result in a Russian casualty. And the Russians need to be cognizant of their casualties because they are somewhat outgunned. So instead, what we'll do is we'll bombard it, and we'll use another of our bombardment counters here. And we will roll to see what we can, what we can do. We got a 1. And a 1 is no effect. So that is not a good result for the Russians. And they are left with 2. Now for the Allies, well, we can do a 7-2 here, which is a +5. They'll get the benefit of the river, no slope advantage. So still going to subtract 1. 7-2 in the 5 column. Rolled a 4. 4 in the 5 column is a 1-1. So they're going to lose that. And so this guy is not going to be destroyed. This one gets flipped, and then the one in my hand is going to get reduced. So this is the 20th of the 1st Regiment. Here he is. Okay, so here he is, and we're going to put him out right there. And I think that's the last of the attacks that they will do. The Russians will do another bombardment. In fact, they've got 2 left, so why not use them? They will hit, let's attack, let's try this guy right here. He's a 4. So we're going to attack him and get a 4, which is target disrupted, which is fine. Just flip him over. And then we're going to attack him again and hope to get something better. With the last attack, if we rolled a 5, nope. Okay. 5 or a 6 would have done him in. Well, given him a step loss, at least. So that is the end of the attack phase, and it is the end of the video. We've gone about an hour, and I feel like you've gotten a good demonstration of the game. I may do another video. It depends time-wise. I have a vacation coming up and a lot of things in flux. So we'll see. I don't know how much interest there would be in finishing this or continuing it. We would be going to turn 3. Once I clean this up, everybody else will just essentially pass. I'm not going to bother to flip them over because I'll just have to flip them again. But you get an idea of how it works. So hopefully that was a good example of the flow of the game. And again, if the Allies capture the 2 hills or get a unit to the southern edge, of the map, they will win. Russians win by avoiding that, basically. So that will do it. I do appreciate you guys checking it out. Hope you will consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them in the comments section. I'll do my best to reply. But that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. I'm Joe. This is Hexed Encountered. And until next time, happy gaming.